per year for the next 100 years, imagine what kind of world this would be. It's impossible. I mean, we have reached a certain limit. There's a very interesting argument about when barriers become limits, which cannot be overcome. Right now, we do not have a limit on labour supply. We've added something like 2 or 3 billion people to the world's labour force in the last 20, 30 years. We don't have a limit on technological dynamism. We've got plenty of that around. We do have certain limits, which I think are becoming more and more obvious to people in terms of the ability of the Earth to yield up enough in the way of energy resources, food grains, everything else to sustain. And we also have a limit on consumption because the collapse of the credit markets, that's where the consumption comes from. Look at the history of debt, of indebtedness. We are now so indebted, and it's just absolutely astonishing. Personal consumer debt, financial debt of, for instance, the United States government is enormous. And that is going to lead to crises. In fact, we've had lots of debt crises all over the place in the last 30 years, and that's one of the big hallmarks of neoliberalism, is to have lots of debt crises here, there, and everywhere. The difference this time is it's happening in the United States. Before it happened in places which the United States nobody had ever heard of, you know, small places like Indonesia, you know, Thailand. Sorry, but that's the way the United States thinks of it, you know. And this is, if you like, the limit, and therefore there are things that have to be thought about now that have not been thought about for a long time. That if we are in a limit situation, then exactly how are we going to get out of it, particularly given the incredible lopsidedness of political power right now, and the incredible concentrations of wealth globally. I mean, a few people control about 30% of the world's wealth. You could probably add up a couple of hundred, maybe 300 people that control about 30% of the world's wealth. And, they're part of the problem. So, yeah, I mean, I agree that all of us in our particular situations have to face the fact that we are not able simply ourselves to change it by what we do as an architect or what I do as an academic. What we have to do is to think through what the general politics, I mean, the question I pose to you, who are you in reliance with? What social movements are you relating to? I mean, things of that sort. I mean, this is what is crucial.
You gave a beautiful intellectual construction of our history and our dream future. But somewhere in the middle, you said something which is extremely disturbing to me. And that is where you concluded that in almost all revolutionary movements, there is a direct combination and a very close interrelationship between nostalgia and the vision of a future. Now, isn't this the human condition to do that? Would it be envisionable to do anything without such a combination?
Now, one of my favorite quotes is, or sayings, is from Balzac, which is, hope is a memory that desires. Historical memory is crucial in any political movement. But there's a big difference between historical memory and nostalgia, which is about restoration, for me. And therefore, I think the mobilization of historical memory of the urban and the possibilities that exist is a very important part of politics. But it has also to be connected with an active desire which is always a bit utopian, which is to try to make the world a different and better place. So I think that my objections to nostalgia are when memory doesn't become a political force in terms of constructive future change, but becomes, if you like, as Marx put it, a nightmare on the brain of the living, and prevents, as it were, a visionary reconstruction of some future.
But now I change the word, and it's not nostalgia, it's tradition. And tradition is what links people not only to their social groups, it's what links them to their place in the world. And if so many of the effects that you describe so eloquently come from the idea of globalization and capitalism, wouldn't your hope be in, well, that, I mean, not exclusively in doing something in a local place, but in having your stronghold in local traditions, in history, in whatever we've done before that did not go wrong?
Yeah, places are made, they're not given. And I think the history of that making is terribly important. I think it's part of a basis of, again, a political motivation. And the idea of remaking places, to recognize that place was made and it can be remade and remade over again. And in fact, that's what the history, the dynamic history of urbanization has been about. And you can be very happy about, you know, oh, it's a working class community, but then you realize this was forged, say, in the 1870s through migrant, through a migrant process. So the tradition, if you like, is not something that goes back and is ineffable into the past. It's about a living history which is constantly being transformed. And that therefore that transformative force has to be mobilized. So I'm not against local action, if you thought that's what I was saying. I'm very much in favor of local action, but it's local action that has to be also transformative in relationship to what is going on in other places, in other ways.
Switch on somewhere.
We're both technologically challenged.
I agree, fundamentally I agree with your analysis. And many of your explicit and implicit quotations are very important also for me. I recognize in what you are saying the same cultural and political roots that I have. So I agree completely. But, as you know, the weakness of this analysis is that it seems that you are waiting for the crisis, like we are waiting for the Messiah. And this is a clear weakness, because there are three elements that are very important and we must take account. First three, that the opportunities to enlarge again the scale are enormous today. There are continents in which the process of urbanization, but not urbanization, of accumulation and so on, is possible. So, secondly, that at the same time, as you know, social inequalities are growing and growing in a very dramatic way. But at this time, the process of growing the social inequalities is a very selective process in which the society is divided in many groups, not only rich and poor, not only the dominant class and the subjects, but many different groups of people that are selected as we are selecting students in the school, like giving marks and so on. And thirdly, that you have any